The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome. As you can tell, I do not have my voice back yet. We will do the best. I will do the best that I can. Being sick, still sick, but hopefully strong enough to do a show today. We'll see how long we go. That'll depend on how I'm feeling, and of course on how many questions you guys have. I had COVID. Got back in the United States on Friday. Got back to Puerto Rico. Saturday, I did an AMA with you guys. By Saturday evening, I wasn't feeling well. Told my wife, yeah, getting sick. Sunday, I was out, gone. Got a COVID test. Definitely had COVID. And so had a pretty bad case of COVID. Sore throat, congestion, as you can hear, fever, cough, weakness, the whole shebang. Wiped me out for like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, really Wednesday. Yesterday I started feeling better. Today I'm feeling better. Tomorrow I'm sure I'll feel a little bit better, and hopefully we'll keep going. This is my third time with COVID, I think, twice, 2, 3, something like that. This is the worst by far. None of my COVID cases did I lose my sense of smell or sense of taste. So, when a Freeman says double your vitamin D to 4,000, you assume that I take 2,000 vitamin D. I mean, where does that come from? Like people think they know me. What the hell? I'm on 5,000 IUs of vitamin D, so lack of vitamin D is not the reason I got COVID. You've done research on me. There's no research that shows that 4,000 IU of vitamin D does. I mean, vitamin D generally helps the immune system, generally is good for you. I'm on, I take vitamin D, and I take more when I'm sick, but I don't have a causal link between the two. Anyway, I don't want to talk about COVID. We can talk about COVID, but I don't really want to talk about COVID. If you want to talk about COVID, then put it up. But yeah, I was on 5,000 milligrams of IUs of vitamin D. So it wasn't lack of vitamin D that brought about COVID. If you want to ask about COVID, ask in the super chat. Had some interesting responses from all kinds of people around the internet. I guess I got COVID because I was vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you get COVID. That is the story, even though my vaccination is from 2021. All right. A lot has happened because really it's been 2 weeks, right? Because the 1 week I was in Madrid and didn't really do a show, and then I've been sick for a week, so it's been 2 weeks. A lot has been going on in the world. We won't be able to cover all of it, but I thought we'd catch up on a few of the main stories. And it might be a little rushed today. It might be a shorter show today, given all this. But we will see how it all goes. All right, let's see. A like number says, I assume you'd never take ivermectin. I would take ivermectin if I had something that ivermectin actually cured. If I had a parasite, I would definitely take ivermectin. Would I take ivermectin for COVID? No. I mean, that's just voodoo. That's just voodoo. So no, I would not. Let's see. God. Some strange questions. Okay. Let's see. All right, let's start. Yesterday was Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is kind of the holiest day of the year for the Jews. It's a day of fasting. It's a day where Jews, both very religious Jews, but also pretty secular Jews, go to synagogue. It's one day where pretty much everybody goes to synagogue. In Israel, it's a day where there's just no cars in the streets. It's completely empty. Everybody walks to synagogue. I mean, some people drive, but then they park far away from the synagogue and then they walk. But there are very, very, very few cars driving in the streets. I remember my dad used to go to, he was a doctor, so he sometimes had to work on Yom Kippur. He would sometimes get stones thrown at him for driving on Yom Kippur, so Israel can get pretty nasty about this Yom Kippur stuff, in certain neighborhoods at least. Anyway, yesterday in Great Britain, at a Jewish congregation in Manchester, there are about 300,000 Jews in the United Kingdom, and this congregation in Manchester, somebody came in with a car, drove into a bunch of people, came out with a knife, started stabbing people around him, then headed towards the synagogue and tried to get in. People on the other side of the door in the synagogue, closed the door, held him back, prevented him from breaking into the synagogue, where I'm sure he was. He wanted to inflict more damage and do more harm. As he's trying to break into the synagogue, and the police arrive, and these are police in England who have guns. Go figure. Anyway, the police arrive and they shoot him. They shoot him and they shoot at him. As a consequence of them shooting him, some of the bullets go through the door, and one person on the other side of the door is killed, another one is injured. So the total of this is a number of people are injured. 2 people were killed, one directly by the attacker, the other by the police, in trying to kill the attacker. So still by the attacker, but indirectly. This is, this is a major anti-Semitic attack in the UK. Of course, the protesters, the pro-Palestinian protesters, the pro-Hamas protesters, more accurately, who are in the streets in England all the time, did not agree to not go into the streets yesterday. They went into the streets. Actually, the protests were bigger and in more cities than were planned, because these people were very excited by the fact that some Jews had been killed on Yom Kippur. Now, of course, everybody was very afraid to attribute motive to the killer, even though this is his name. Just so you realize his name. His name was Jihad al-Shami, right? But the Labour Party will not accuse Jihad al-Shami of an act of anti-Semitic terrorism, of jihadism, even though his name is Jihad. They won't attribute to that. We still don't know. We have to investigate. Who knows? Generally, the response from the left has been muted, non-existent. The response from many in the Islamic community in England has been going out to demonstrate against Israel. The response of many intellectuals on the left is like, look, this is Israel's fault. These Jews, whether they're Zionists or not, they're suffering because of what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. This is all justified because it's just retribution for what Israel is doing. And this is of course, fascinating because nobody has a real response to this. And you're seeing a lot of people condemn this as anti-Semitic and killing Jews for being Jews. But almost saying, look, you don't know, they might not have been Zionists, they might not have been supporters of Israel. Wait a minute, let me get this straight. She's saying if they were supporters of Israel, would it have been okay to kill them? Here, I'll give you an example. And this is from The Spectator, which is a conservative, right-wing, pro-Israel publication by a guy named Nick Cohen, so I assume a Jew. Why won't the left call out anti-Semitism for what it is? And he writes, the assassin, a British citizen of Syrian heritage, showed his appreciation for this country by ramming his car into the grounds of the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in my home city of Manchester and stabbing any Jew he could find. He had never talked to them. He'd never discovered their views about Israel and Palestine. It was enough that they were Jews. This is such a cop-out. It's such a sellout. What if he had talked to them? What if it turned out that they support Israel? That they think Israel's in the right? Would then Nick Cohen say, oh, okay, well, maybe then it's okay. Or then it's not anti-Semitism. The issue of whether these particularly Jews were pro-Israel, anti-Israel, is completely irrelevant. The issue of whether the killer knew whether they were pro-Israel or anti-Israel is completely irrelevant. I mean, what's relevant here is violence is not a means for dealing with disagreement in the West. Violence is not a means for dealing with disagreement in the West. You don't kill people you disagree with. He kept going. It was enough that they were Jews, and any Jew would do. So he killed one and left the other to be hit by a stray police bullet in the fight that followed. These are racist murders. And if they're not racist murderers, if they're ideologically motivated murders, just as the huge upsurge in abuse of Jews since Hamas massacre of October 2023 represents a huge upsurge in racial hatred. Now, all that is absolutely true. It is racial hatred. But that's not the relevant, and it's not even relevant to just label him an anti-Semite. It's way too easy. It's way too letting him off the hook too easy and letting off the whole entire Islamist world off too easy. Is he an anti-Semite like the Nazis? Is he an anti-Semite like, I don't know, the leftists in the streets? Is he as anti-Semite like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen? He's a particular type of anti-Semite. He's a particular type of anti-Semite. He's a jihadist. He's an Islamist. He's somebody who holds an ideology that says that the West should be destroyed. And by the way, Jews are an important part of that West. And then in destroying the West, destroying the Jews is a piece of that. It's how you get to where you want to go. It's not separate. It's not independent of his ideology of Islamism, his ideology of Sharia law, imposing Sharia law on Britain. And by calling him an anti-Semite, it's just not good enough. This person was motivated by an ideology that many Muslims in Britain hold, an ideology that, as a consequence of many Muslims in Britain holding, they are acting in one way or another against the very nature of Western civilization, acting in one way or another against the very nature of the state of Britain, and they have to be opposed. It is the ideology of Islamism that has to be opposed. This anti-Semitic spin-off is just one piece of it. Yes, right now, the Islamists are getting a lot of leverage from globalized intifada, from the river to the sea, from villain, making Israel into the villain. And that is because they're being aided and abetted by the left and by some on the right who despise Israel. So right now, it is in the interest of the Islamists to align themselves with the anti-Semites. But the threat is much broader than just their anti-Semitic views. The threat comes from their Islamist views. The threat comes from their support, in the past for ISIS and Al-Qaeda, in the present for Hamas and Hezbollah. These are not just a coalition of anti-Semites. What's really important here is the real threat to the West is not from anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is just, a early symptom of the disease. The real threat here, is Islamism. The real threat here is people who believe that Western civilization must be destroyed and replaced by an Islamic caliphate, and that Sharia law must be imposed on the West. That is the threat. They happen to be disguised as anti-Semites right now. And this has been the threat for, since 9/11, certainly. I've been saying the threat to Europe, you can find videos of me saying this in 2002 on panels with Daniel Pipes. The threat in Europe is Islamism. It's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse because of appeasement. Because of appeasement and compromise, and indeed opening up the doors to more Islamists. Come on over. The embrace of Islamism. It's only gotten worse because nobody would publish the Danish cartoons. It's only gotten worse because they've taken off all the paintings of Muhammad from museums in Europe. It's only gotten worse because nobody's willing to say the enemy is Islamism. But it has to be said, and unless you say that, no other solution is viable. There is no solution unless you're willing to identify the ideology that is the enemy. Islamism, that is the ideology. No, doesn't Trump say that? Yes. And at the same time, he provides a security guarantee as strong as NATO's, Article 5, to the one regime in the Middle East, funding Islamism, on the Sunni side at least, more than any other regime, and that's Qatar. So Trump is useless when it comes to this. He doesn't say it, and he supports the worst elements in it. Christianity is an enemy, but Christianity is a separate enemy than what we're talking about right now. Christianity is positioned to us as the solution to this problem, and that it is clearly not. Oh, and you really are pathetic sometimes. Really pathetic. Pathetic. Anne says he's trying to flip them. That's so cringe. It is so Trump mindlessness syndrome. It is so cringe. And I'm not kidding now. I've literally got, cold flashes because, How can anybody be that mindless? Right? Trump did it, so it must be good. So let's rationalize it. All right, but I'm not surprised. I mean, it's and Scott, it's all the same thing. It's Islamist. And, you know, you can talk about solutions to the Islamic problem in Europe, and there are all kinds of solutions. But you cannot solve anything without first identifying the cause of the problem. You can't solve anything without first saying they are the problem. Islamism is the problem. Jihadism is the problem. And we will not tolerate it. It is an enemy, and we will fight it. And until the West gets serious about fighting Islamism, jihadism, nothing will happen. I don't care if it's reform. I don't care if it's the conservatives. I don't care if it's the left. I don't care who it is. If they don't name it, they can't fight it. By the way, I said that right after 9/11. You cannot defeat an enemy you are afraid to name. You cannot defeat an enemy that you are afraid to name. So, yeah. In Great Britain, the right is saying it's anti-Semitism. The left is saying, oh, we don't know. He's just a confused a person. It's just one individual. And I'm saying it's Islamism. And until you recognize it's Islamism, left and right, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to get better. By the way, this was a guy that it turns out was accused of rape, was out on bail, and his family, just to be clear, his family completely repudiated what he's done. His family says, we fully distance ourselves from this attack and express our deep shock and sorrow over what has happened. That's more than the rest of the Muslim community has done. Our hearts and thoughts are with the victim and his families, and we pray that for their strength and comfort. So, you know, it's not clear that the family is an Islamist family, but he was. He was an Islamist. Why they called him jihad, why anybody would call their son jihad is beyond me, but there you go. Yeah. But obviously, a sad day in the UK. It looks like both Manchester United and Manchester City are going to hold a minute's silence at the beginning of their football game. I guess when did they play? On Sunday. In commemoration of the victims. Remember, this happened in Manchester. So yeah, I mean, at some point, we'll talk more about this in a future show. At some point, Europe has to come to terms with who it is that is responsible for the violence in the streets. It's not random. It's not just Muslims. It's not just third world culture. It's none of those things. It's a particular ideology. It's a particular set of beliefs. And that set of beliefs and that ideology really, that needs to be shut down. And for that, you need to declare it the enemy. And by the way, just for the record, I've been saying that for 24 years. You can find video of me saying it basically 24 years ago. So I haven't said it, maybe as often recently, just because I said it so often in the first 10 years that I got sick of saying it. But it's you have to deal with root causes, and you have to be willing to identify root causes. And you have to have the courage to stand up to the villains and to recognize that it's ideology, it's religion. Yeah, it's Islam. It's related to Islam. It's not separate from Islam. Islam is not a religion of peace, as George Bush would have us believe. It's religion. Religion is an enemy. Whoop, what happened here? Sorry, something happened here. Let me just fix this. Did you guys lose connection for a second? I don't know why the chat disappeared from you for a while. Let's see. Right. Yes, I wrote a book on the topic. Yes, I did. But I can't remember what we talk about there about Europe, but I've spoken many, many times about the situation in Europe and what needs to be done. Again, you can find video. All right. Let's see. And of course, this all brings us to the Gaza peace plan. So as you probably know, it's everywhere. Trump basically puts together a peace plan for Gaza that involves Hamas releasing all the hostages, dead and alive, basically disarming and supposedly playing no role in the future of Gaza, Gaza being taken over by some kind of international entity, a board run by him, by Trump, ultimately turned over to a reformed and restructured Palestinian Authority. While this is happening, of course, Israel retreats from the Gaza Strip. An international force comes in to fill in the security gap. That international force is made up of Arab countries, and this was a proposed peace deal. Brought it in front of people are such idiots. Sorry, I read the chat. I shouldn't. Wyatt is back with his inability to think. The idea is Israel withdraws to pre-October 7th, to pre-October 8th border. And I guess the Arab world, together with the United States and maybe Europe and maybe other countries, rebuild Gaza into whatever. Netanyahu was brought to the White House in order to agree to this plan. As part of that meeting, Netanyahu was demanded of Netanyahu to call the Prime Minister of Qatar, apologize for Israel's attack on Hamas in Qatar, and which he did. Yeah, he had a script, and he read the script, and he called the Prime Minister of Qatar. He committed to never attacking Qatar again, never attacking Hamas in Qatar. He expressed condolences or regret for the fact that one Qatari citizen was killed in the attack. I mean, just a pathetic display, but par for the course, I guess. And Netanyahu, in spite of having grave reservations about this plan, and in spite of the fact that his coalition partners in Israel have significant reservations about this plan, basically agreed to the plan. Hamas has been dragging their feet all week without giving a response, but supposedly, based on the news I'm reading right now, they over the last hour or so, or last couple of hours, have responded to the plan positively, in a sense that they're willing to release all the hostages. They want some clarifications, they claim, and they want to renegotiate certain parts of it, primarily about giving up their weapons and about their involvement in the future of Gaza. It's going to be really, really, really interesting to see whether the United States and Israel are willing to negotiate with Hamas about these points, whether this agreement is still open for negotiations or whether it's a done deal. And I think we will know within the next few days whether this is a done deal. Hamas is very good. They're very good at dragging these things out, of giving people enough hope that they're going for it, to keep it being dragged out. I also think that what's going on is that within Hamas there's significant disagreements about the agreement, but they're gonna play the game. And we'll see if the United States and Israel let them play the game. My guess is that the answer is yes. Trump wants this deal done. And so they will delay as much as they can. How much they can delay is hard to tell. I mean, the good news is that probably the consequence of this will be the release of the hostages. That is the good news. You'll probably see both the live and the bodies of the dead hostages released within a couple of weeks, assuming that Hamas will ultimately negotiate something that allows them to say, okay, that's fine. So that is kind of the state of play. As part of all this, Trump also gave the Qataris a security guarantee with no conditions attached to it, no conditions about the Qataris changing their minds, no conditions about the Qataris stopping to fund terrorism, no conditions about the Qataris shutting down Al Jazeera, or maybe shifting Al Jazeera to be a little bit more moderate, no conditions about the Qataris abandoning the Muslim Brotherhood. None, no conditions at all. Donald Trump gave them a security guarantee, basically implying that if Israel attacks Qatar again, the United States is at war with Israel, which is the implication of the security guarantee. It is anybody who attacks Qatar is an enemy of the United States. The United States is guaranteed to come and protect them. Really pretty astounding move for the President of the United States. But that's what we have. As part of this deal, you got a number of Muslim and Arab countries signing on in agreement with the peace deal, including countries like Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, but even as far as, I think, Indonesia and Malaysia, and Pakistan. Pakistan is playing a big role here. Pakistan, of course, now has a security guarantee with Saudi Arabia, and Trump is very friendly with the Pakistanis. Go figure, Trump and the Pakistanis, hard to tell. But I'm sure there's a 4D chess reason for it. There's a 4D chess reason for Trump being friendly with the Pakistanis. Just ask Anne if you're not sure what it is. She'll explain it to you. But, as you know, I think any peace deal with Hamas is an abomination. Even this one, which is not bad. This is about as good as it gets. But the idea that you negotiate with Hamas, the idea that you recognize their legitimacy by negotiating with them, I think is absurd. I think, again, the idea of a security guarantee to Qatar, which is a major funder of terrorism around the world, and a major funder of Islamism around the world. They are the funder and supporter, home of, protector of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the fountainhead of all these Islamist groups. That is a travesty and a betrayal. So I think, long term, I think this peace deal is no good. It hurts Israel, it hurts the West, it hurts the United States. It makes it very difficult to fight the broader battle against Islamism and jihadism when you're, making best friends with the people who support jihadism and Islamism. It also suggests that a Palestinian state is in the future. It doesn't basically. There's no provision for justice towards those among Hamas who are still alive, who were responsible for October 7th. There's no provision there for them being tried. Indeed, as part of this, Israel is supposed to release 150 murderers, 150 terrorist murderers, and thousands of detainees that they've arrested. So there's no justice in this. There's no thought about justice. This is very much what the Israeli public wants, in a sense that all the Israeli public seems to care about these days is the release of the hostages. And I think this gets them that, if it goes through. And look, Hamas is very weak right now. So it takes advantage of that, and it gets them at their weak points. And maybe there's a chance that they're so weak that they will never recover. But I wouldn't bet on that. And I wouldn't bet on the fact that the Qataris will fund them into recovery. And not just the Qataris, but others. So I'm not happy with the peace deal. As I told you a long, long time ago, the way to solve the problem in Gaza is the complete and utter destruction of Hamas. And that needed to be done militarily, it needed to be done aggressively, and it needed to be done 18 months ago, not today. It's a little late. And not after negotiating round after round after round after round after round of ceasefires with them. They should have been taken out right at the beginning. But it is what it is. The appeasement of Islamism, just like in England, in the Middle East, continues. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start with Trump. It's been going on forever. Israel is to a large extent responsible. The United States is responsible. I warned against this in 9/11 and after Oslo and over and over and over again. It's a never-ending conflict. I mean, there is some hope that the demand for Palestinian Authority reform will be real this time. We'll see. But a lot of this is about execution and will it be executed? And allow me to be skeptical. I am still one who believes that the only solution is Israel occupying Gaza, ripping out every last vestige of Hamas and destroying it. I would rearrest every single one of the people Israel released in the hostage exchanges. And I would put them back in jail. And I would occupy the Gaza Strip. And if people want to rebuild it, then fine. Let the money come in to rebuild it under Israeli supervision. Under Israeli supervision. So that tunnels and bombs and missile launches are not facilitated by it. Okay, so we will keep track of this peace deal. It's not the last time we'll talk about it. But it does, I mean, the headline in NPR right now is Hamas agrees to parts of peace deal after Trump gives deadline. And the BBC says Hamas says it agrees to release Israeli hostages, but seeks changes to the U.S. Gaza peace plan. So exactly what Trump's response to that is going to be, we will see. All right, I want to cover two other quick stories, and then I'll go to your questions, and then I'll probably ask you to make the show a short show and not to overtax my voice. As you again earlier in the week, Secretary Hegseth invited all generals to a meeting. This is unprecedented. I don't think it's ever happened before. And they all came in, and they all sat in a big lecture room. And Hegseth and then President Trump got up and gave them a talk. It was fascinating to watch, right? First, the general sat in silence. There was no cheering, clapping, nothing. Not the beginning of the talk, not the middle, not the end. I think it completely shook Trump. He's not used to this. They just sat there stone-faced and did not respond to what he said. And I think he felt really, really weird about that. Anyway, Hegseth went out and gave this passionate speech, parts of which I agree with, doing away with stupid rules of engagement. But it was all done in this condescending, Fox Newsy, I know better than you, this is the way we should fight wars in the future kind of way. Probably not the best way to change attitudes among generals in your military. If you really want to change the rules of engagement, you've got to change what's being taught at West Point. You've got to change how these generals think about war. There was no grand theory delivered here. There was no perspective on, well, what is going to replace the rules of engagement. There was no engagement with the ideas of just war theory and what should replace just war theory and how one should conduct oneself in a war. So I agree with the sentiment, but not with the way Hegseth delivered it and not what he means by it. Part of it is that, does he mean by it that the United States military should act like the Russian military? Rape, pillage, where it goes? I mean, that's hopefully not what he means, but he didn't say what he means. He left it as an empty nothing. So it landed up being meaningless and stupid, and the generals in the room knew that and know that. Well, what's the alternative? Lay out something. And now should be something that should have been prepared in writing in advance, should be handed out, should have been presented. Hegseth then called out the military for its lack of physical preparedness, and this is something, again, I agree with. He said that fat generals and fat soldiers were an embarrassment. I agree with that. I would add fat, and I said this during BLM, fat policemen. The police need to be, we need to get the police up to physical standards. But yeah, the military should be in shape. He also eliminated kind of the gender bias in physical training, which I agree with. That is, it should be a male-based standard. If a woman can make that, if a woman can achieve that level of fitness, great. But it should be whatever the combat demands in terms of fitness. So, again, I agreed with the sentiment. But he said it in, again, an insulting, stupid kind of way to a bunch of generals there. He really is he's a Fox commentator. And these are people who are lifetime in the military. There's probably a much, much better way to make the case for both of those things and for everything he wanted to address there. And the basic things that actually seemed like they made sense, other than this way, right? Other than this way. So that was Hegseth. A lot of what he said, I agreed with. Didn't like the way he said it. Didn't think it was the appropriate means and appropriate place to express these ideas and to lecture to a bunch of generals about them. Then came up Trump, and Trump, of course, I think is losing it. I don't think he's cognitively completely there. He rambled for an hour. All over the place. A lot of it incoherent. But by the way, part of his meeting with Netanyahu was just embarrassing. I mean, he went on and on and on about how this conflict is a conflict of not just decades of centuries, really. And he said, really, 5,000 years, thousands of years, this has been going on. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. And I don't think he knows he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know enough to know how stupid what he says is. And everybody is so used to his stupidity or to the ignorance that he expresses that nobody even calls him out on it. Like, if any other president had said something like that, this conflict is hundreds of years and thousands of years, people would have said, oh, that's ridiculous. There's no conflict. I memean, Israel didn't exist hundreds of years ago. Palestinians, Arabs, I mean, none of this existed. Biblical land, this is very different. This isn't the same conflict. Conflicts back then were Romans and Greeks and all kinds of stuff. But nobody calls him on these things because he does it all the time. He says so many wrong things per minute that you can't correct them all. So people don't bother anymore. So let's not focus on all the BS that he said during this talk. We'll focus on what he said that was coherent and what is scary. Because what he basically told the generals was, I want you to start focusing on this new strategy that we have. And the new strategy that we have is America first. And that means we need you, the military, to focus your efforts on defending the United States, not from enemies from outside, but from the enemies within. The war that is being waged is a war from within. He's telling the U.S. military, I'm going to be using you to go after domestic enemies. And again, this is always vague and ambiguous in terms of what he means. But you can see what he means. You can see it. You can see it in cities all over the United States today, with ICE and National Guard troops all over the place. You can see it with Black Hawk helicopters being used to attack supposedly illegal immigrants, but maybe some U.S. citizens get caught up in the crosshairs. Who cares? I mean, it's all for the good cause of deporting immigrants. If a few American citizens lose their rights, why are we getting so excited about it? What he really means is the militarization of American streets. What he really means is the bringing in the American military onto American streets to fight an invisible enemy, an enemy that doesn't have tanks and is not a huge acceleration of violence in American streets. Quite the opposite. Violence is at relatively lows right now, and decades-long lows. Is this to go after the enemy that is the Democratic Party, the enemy that is the left, the enemy that might steal the next election? So maybe we need troops outside polling places to make sure people vote the right way. What is this? This is the kind of stuff that authoritarians do. They use the military for their domestic disputes. They use the military to settle domestic rivalries. And he's now explicit about it. And the generals sat there, and it's hard to tell what they thought. A couple of them have already resigned since that meeting. Good for them. I wish they'd all in mass resign. That would have been much more effective. He said, I told Pete Hegseth, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military National Guard. Training ground for what? What are we training them for? Training for other American cities? So, Trump has now ordered federal troops to Portland, Oregon. I mean, it might have made sense to send federal troops to Portland, Oregon in 2020 when Antifa was burning down the place. But it's actually quite quiet now in Portland, Oregon. There's not a lot of violence in Portland, Oregon. It's gone back to being a fairly peaceful place. But now you're sending federal troops? To do what? Well, to create conflict. And that's indeed what they're doing. They're creating conflict. If there weren't demonstrations before in Portland, Oregon, they sure are now. his troops being there is going to guarantee that. So just a scary performance. You know, Trump is just pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries. And he wants to see where he gets pushed back, and he's not getting pushed back. He's not getting real pushback anyway. I mean, they got pushback. I think they got pushback from the Jimmy Kimmel situation, right? The FCC chairman who really got pushback from a lot of people on the right. A lot of commentators on the right went after the Trump administration and the FCC for the comments they made about Kimmel. So when Kimmel came back, while Trump wasn't happy about it, the FCC kind of backed off and said, oh, no, we were kidding. And that's the pushback they got. But here, they're not getting pushback from anybody. They're not getting pushback from anybody. The left, the mainstream media, which is they consider part of the left. But the right is not rising up against them. Congress is not rising up against them. He can deploy troops to any city he wants in the United States, and the right will go along with it. His fans will go along with it. Congress will go along with it. So he'll keep doing it. He'll keep doing it. Right, one additional area where he's pushing is this idea of, we're at war in the South Caribbean with drug smugglers. Before today, they had blown up 3 boats, killing, almost 20 people. Today, they blew up another boat, killing 4 people. No due process, no evidence. They're what? I mean, let's say they're drug smugglers. What do we usually do with drug smugglers? We send them to jail. We don't execute them on the spot. Now we're executing people in the high seas for being suspected drug smugglers. And nobody seems to think that's a problem. We just shoot them out of the sky. We've declared them. He called it a. He declared it a non-international armed conflict. That is not with another country, with the drug cartels. There's an armed conflict with the drug cartels. I mean, just bizarre. He's let Congress know that we're engaged in such an armed conflict. Congress, of course, because it's controlled by Republicans, won't do anything about it. They've declared the drug cartels narco-terrorists, and therefore this is part of, I guess, the war on terrorism. It's part of the danger of ever calling a war on terrorism. And they just blow up boats coming out of Venezuela and kill people at will. and this is exactly what he's testing. What are the limits? Who can I kill? What can I destroy? How can I use the military? How far can I go? All indications are that they intend to go after the Maduro government and depose it. I'm not necessarily against that if they can do it without placing American soldiers at risk. But I thought this was an anti-war president. Puerto Rico has F-35 aircrafts now. We have 8 U.S. warships in the region. There are Marines and sailors and at least 1 nuclear-powered submarine. There are significant troop movements here in Puerto Rico around the military bases that were for years closed. And there is lots of indications that Maduro is the target. Has there been a declaration of war by Congress? No. Has Trump asked for one? No. Again, let's just push, see what we can get away with. We're not going to ask for permission. We're going to do what I want to do, i.e. what Trump wants to do, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. We'll keep an eye out on what is going on in the Caribbean, and here in Puerto Rico, we'll keep an eye out on developments vis-a-vis Venezuela and the war on drugs. Again, very few of the drugs that arrive in the United States come through the Caribbean. Most of them come through the Pacific or just the Mexican border. It doesn't matter to Trump. That's not the point. All right, let's call that the news for October 3rd, this Friday. I'll just let you know I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow on Sunday. Again, depending on whether I have a voice after today's show and depending on how I feel tomorrow on Sunday. But I'm going to try to do as many shows as I can to kind of make up for the fact that we haven't done many shows over the last 2 weeks. So we'll try to do a bunch of shows going forward. We've got a lot of questions. I'm going to try to cover them all. We'll see how successful I am. All right, lots of questions. And let's see, where are we? There it is. All right. All right, I'm going to now remind you who the sponsors are today, just to save my voice. We'll do that tomorrow, and you can check out the sponsors below. Check their websites out. Let's just jump into the questions. All right, Michael. It's interesting why some personalities are able to garner cult-like following and others can't. If Hitler had been eliminated, I don't think Goebbels could have sustained it. The people wouldn't have followed them. Same with Trump. Without him, MAGA disintegrates. Yes, there's no question. Most of these kind of movements are very much cult personalities. I don't think communism really takes root in Russia without Lenin, and I'm not sure. And yeah, you need a Hitler. You need somebody who has that charisma, call it. I think that's true all over the place. Chavez in Venezuela, it required a Mao Zedong in China, and it very much became a cult personality. It was about Mao, and it was Mao's Red Book. It was Mao everything. It was Mao's everybody could recite from Mao's Red Book. These movements are always very much oriented towards an individual, a person, somebody to lead them. And this makes sense because they're all basically a reversion, a backward reversion to tribalism. And the tribe needs a leader. The tribe needs somebody to follow. The tribe doesn't know what to do. The tribe has no identity without a leader, without a Attila the Hun, a Genghis Khan, a leader, somebody who tells them, this is what you should do, this is what you should sacrifice for. They're all ready to sacrifice, but they don't know what for. And it is the leader who gives them direction, who gives them meaning, who gives them purpose. It's very hard to have authoritarianism. It's really impossible to have authoritarianism without a kind of a worship of the leader. Otherwise, who are they supposed to die for? Right? Soviet Union is very different once Stalin is gone and the fearless leader is gone. Communism in China can't survive once Mao is gone beyond a couple of years. He dies in 76, by 78, it starts completely falling apart. I don't know of any authoritarian movement that has not been oriented around a powerful, significant, charismatic, certain personality leader who is the one who channels the truth to the tribe and tells them how, where, when, for what they are being sacrificed. So absolutely, you're absolutely right. And it's an authoritarian leader, an absolutist leader, a leader that can do no wrong, clearly a personality, or what do you call it? Worship of a personality. You don't get that in free countries. The president, the leader, never becomes the point. He never becomes the point. And to the extent where there's fear of him becoming the point, that's when freedom is in trouble. So when it's all about FDR, well, we're in trouble. When it's all about Trump, well, we're in trouble. It's all about Obama, we're in trouble. It's when the leader becomes this focal point of worship that freedom is in trouble. But in George Washington, when he sensed that that's what it looked like, was quick to walk away, because he didn't want that, because he understood that if you're too strong a personality, you can become that. But authoritarian regimes, it's exactly what they want, and they cultivate that. They cultivate the cult of personality. Freedom doesn't cultivate cult of personalities. You can have leaders who are not cults of personalities. Harper Campbell, part 1. Trump and Mamdani share a fondness for strong, arming private companies that raise prices. Mamdani wants to freeze rents. Trump wants to freeze drug prices. I don't think Trump is a socialist in the sense he genuinely likes business and has no problem with profits. Yet he has this in common with socialists. He thinks the country runs better when he tells companies and their shareholders what to do. Yes, I don't think Trump's a socialist. That would require him to have an ideology, and he doesn't. But Trump very much shares the idea that he can manage stuff, and he has no qualms about the government running things. We now have, and I didn't make this a news item, but I will talk about it tomorrow, Trump RX. Basically, we've now established a government-run drugstore, like Mamdani wants to do a government-run grocery store. Well, Trump has just outdone him by creating at the federal level, a government-run drugstore. American people will be able to buy drugs cheaply from the government. How's that not socialism? It's just as bad as what Mamdani wants to do. Well, unless you believe that Trump is a 4D thinker and therefore has some pro-capitalist motivation at the end of the day, which I'm sure Ann does. But no, he's just an opportunist, a power luster, who will just take anything he can, and he has no ideology. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if the government runs things or doesn't run things. The government is taking on more and more and more positions in private companies. It took on another position in another rare earth company in the United States. It's going to take a position in Intel. It's now running a drug company. There is intention within the Trump administration to get more involved with private companies, not less involved with private companies. So there is more and more and more, what anybody else, if anybody else was doing, more and more socialism in this administration than any other administration I know of. No other administration I know of has done more to control American industry and to basically take equity positions in American industry than this administration. In that sense, it's the most socialist administration we've ever had. If a Democrat were doing the things that Trump was doing, Republicans would be horrified. This negotiated deal with TikTok, all of it is government meddling in the private markets. And it's exactly what we accuse socialists of doing, what we accused Democrats of doing, And this is exactly what Trump is doing. Not your average algorithm. You said in your Q&A that we get faked out, like when it comes to the Tea Party, that all political movements are fundamentally collectivistic. Were the Reagan and Thatcher phenomena fake outs as well, or legitimate steps in the right direction? Well, clearly Reagan was a fake out on a massive scale and an incredibly damaging scale. So Reagan was a complete fake out. He talked the talk, but very little action was taken. Government deficits exploded. Government spending exploded under Ronald Reagan. Not just on defense. Government spending more broadly exploded. We didn't get shrinking in the welfare state. You got some shrinkage in regulatory state. Again, most of that was Jimmy Carter. Some under Reagan, but most of it was Jimmy Carter. And you know, he talked a big talk about, I don't know, let's see, Hezbollah and Iran, and did nothing when the Marines barracks were blown up. So no, Reagan was a total fake out. And what did he actually do? What was his lasting legacy? What was his lasting legacy? His lasting legacy was bringing in the religious right into the Republican Party. His lasting legacy was the Republican Party of today, MAGA. The mystics takeover of the Republican Party. That's Reagan's lasting legacy. So was he a fake out? Yeah. I don't think Thatcher was really. She didn't live up to, but she did more than I think could be expected given the state of British political thinking and the state of her political party and her popularity. But so she was limited, but she didn't do that much, and as a consequence, it was very easy to reverse what she had done ultimately. And again, look at where the UK is today. It's a complete and utter, unequivocal basket case. And it's a basket case because of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party has led Britain most of the last 15 years. It's led it into this situation. So in many respects, certainly Reagan was a fake out. Maybe Thatcher was not, but she couldn't go where she needed to go because the country wasn't ready for her. And she left in a whimper because of that. And to this day, Brits don't like her. She's so underappreciated. It's shocking. It's shocking. So, yeah, I mean, in the world in which we live, all these political movements are fundamentally collectivistic. And as such, we need to be very wary of them. Not your average algorithm. Michael, thank you for the $100, and Hopper Campbell and Not Your Average Algorithm, thank you for the $50 questions. Those are great. Here's another Not Your Average Algorithm question. Rand was to philosophy what Newton was to physics. People will recognize this one day. And thankfully, you don't need to be a brilliant physicist to get it. If everyone could see Newton was right, why can't they see Rand is right? Well, because to see Rand is right, you have to be willing to acknowledge that everything else is wrong. You have to be willing to give up your religion. You have to be willing to give up your altruism. You have to be willing to give up your nationalism. You have to be willing to give up your ideology. And particularly when it comes to ethics, to morality, and to epistemology, metaphysics, to religion, it's very, very, very difficult for people to give up their belief system. It's almost impossible, and it's rare to see people giving up altruism and being willing to even consider something an alternative. So they can't see she's right because they're held back by their existing ideologies. People didn't have strong beliefs about the scientific nature of reality before Newton. So once they saw it, they saw it. And they didn't have to dump a bunch of stuff in order to really see it. They didn't have to, I mean, they had to put religion to its place, but Newton was religious, so they could have their cake and eat it too. With Rand, you can't. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Michael, if you look at the architecture in Europe versus Asia or Dubai, all Europe does is preserve their past. European infrastructure is old and stagnant, whereas Asian buildings are modern, futuristic, and dynamic. Yes, absolutely. But part of that is because they didn't have much worth preserving. A lot of what they had was flimsy, and a lot of it had been destroyed by war or poverty. In China, there wasn't anything in Beijing and Shanghai to preserve. There's a little bit, and you can see it in Shanghai. God, I forget the name of the Bunds. It's called the Bunds, B-U-N-D. The Bund, which is the German section of Shanghai, which is European-looking, 19th century European-looking. And it was built by the Germans when Shanghai was divided between the powers. But beyond that, Chinese cities were poor, dinky little buildings of nothing of substance, except very ancient architecture, and that they've kept, of palaces and stuff like that. And then they built fresh. But also, Asia, with all its problems, and it's got big problems, China with all its problems, and it's got big problems, these are ambitious cultures. They are ambitious. They want to be successful. They want to be rich. They want to be the best. In that sense, they remind me of America of the 19th century. They are forward-thinking. They are pro-progress. They're pro-growth, even as they're anti-individual, anti-things that will lead to that. But anyway, they're unbelievably ambitious. And that is reflected in their architecture. And Europe's not ambitious anymore. And Europe is the past. So you go to Europe to study history, to see the history. You come to America maybe to see the present, and you go to Asia to see the future. Now, whether that future will realize itself is hard to tell because they don't understand the ideas that make progress possible. But they want to. They would like to. Michael, I was looking into the Florida bill that aims to eliminate property taxes, and it's only on your primary residence. If you own a second home, you still have to pay the tax, and commercial property isn't exempt either. Oh, that's too bad. Still not a bad deal, but it's too bad that it's not more comprehensive. And of course, if they could exclude a commercial property, that would be huge, because that would provide a huge incentive for businesses to move there. But yes, that is too bad. Michael says, do you think Christianity is more of an intellectual and spiritual threat than Islam? Christianity has deep roots in undermining our institutions, whereas Islam has always been the barbaric outsider. I mean, yeah, you could view it that way. I mean, Islam is a threat. It's just not the threat that is going to succeed long term. It's a threat day to day. It's going to kill people. And the more people Islam kills, the more it will legitimize the Christians, the Christian revival. The more it'll legitimize those who want to wipe out the Muslims. But I've never in my life said Islam is not a threat. Of course it's a threat. It's the threat of the barbarians. But Rome didn't fall because of the barbarians. Rome fell because of the internal rot. The West is not going to fall because of Islam. If the West falls, it's because of internal rot. And that internal rot is a combination of the left and Christianity. And in my view, the Christians won't let it fall they will rise up against the barbarians and crush them. The difference in power between the West and the Muslims is so large, much larger than between Rome and the barbarians, that they will stomp out the barbarians in this case. And then they will dominate. And that will be huge. They will undermine the institutions of enlightenment. They will undermine the institution of liberty. That is what they've always done. That's the nature of Christianity. By the way, the barbarians who sacked Rome were Christians. So it was an internal Christian conflict. And, Rome, particularly at that point, was completely rotted at that point. I mean, completely. It had 400 years of empire. And empire, by its very nature, is a, rotting, it rots you from within. And of course, they also had 150 years of Christianity since Constantine had made Christianity part of the Roman religion, and then it became Justinian, I think, made it the official religion of Rome. It was now Rome was Christian, and there were other Christians who were stronger, more powerful. They threw them out. All right, Andrew, how do conservatives preserve any self-respect being lemmings for Trump? Do you think to the extent their self-respect remains, it's because they think their total support of Trump is a life-defending stand against the left? Well, I mean, I don't know who you're talking about. Who are these conservatives? Have they ever had any self-respect? Do they have self-respect? I don't think they have any self-respect. They just don't. They're mindless, spineless, mindless and spineless. So I don't know who they are. Senators, congressmen, who these are politicians who have always been mindless and spineless. Are we talking about intellectuals? Well, I mean, other than intellectuals who have been never Trumpers, who've maintained some of their self-respect, the others, did they ever have self-respect? So, yeah, I mean, they can rationalize it as we're standing up against the left and this is, what can we do? This is the best that we have. But that's not going to give you self-respect. So no, they have no self-respect. That's the answer. They cannot preserve their self-respect. But they can live with that. Can't live with that well, but they can live with it. All right. We have a bunch of $5, $10 questions. Raymond, first part, I've been quite depressed and anxious with the thought of dying. Given happiness is tied to achieving pro-life things, isn't mortality proof that we ultimately fail? It just feels like anything other than working on this problem is partying on the Titanic. That's a weird way of thinking about life. Life has a beginning and an end. And it's what you make of it in between. There's a beginning and end. Now, it would be nice if that beginning to end was extended dramatically. That would be great. And the more it extended, the better it would be. But that is the metaphysical nature of life. And it's always been that way. And then the question is, and it's partially the possibility of death is partially what gives values. If you never face death, then why would anything be good? It would be good because it allowed you to survive. Survive means there's an alternative. So, no, I mean, your mortality is just a metaphysically given. To be upset about mortality is to be upset about the universe. It's to bang your head against the wall. It achieves nothing, and it takes you nowhere. The question is, you got X number of years here, and yeah, extending that is fantastic, But what are you going to do with them? How are you going to use them? How are you going to live the best life that you can live? How are you going to make every second count? How are you going to make it a worthwhile life? A life well lived? That's the whole point. That's the game. And that's what there is to be achieved. If you can also, at the same time, extend your life somehow, great. But the idea of immortality it's a fantasy. And the idea of, extending life is great. Go do it. But the key is to accept the fact that death is going to be out there and to live the best life that you can live within the boundaries that you have. Liam, feel better, stay healthy. Your soldiers need you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Capitalist Spy says, hope you get well. Thank you. I like number says, I assume you'd never take ivermectin. I take ivermectin for what ivermectin is for. It's very good at getting rid of parasites. If I had a parasite, I would take ivermectin. I said that earlier. Is there only progression and regression? There's no stagnation in the universe. I think that's right. I don't think you stand in place. I think there's either move forward or move backwards. I don't think stagnation is something that is sustainable. I don't know if that's the law of entropy or what it is, but I think that's right. You're either moving towards life or towards death. You're moving forward or you're moving backward. Standing still is just not an option. It's what happens when you die. Andrew says, your critics are sometimes honest, but your objectivist critics often aren't. Yeah, I don't know where that comes from, Andrew. But yeah, I think my objectivist critics are rarely honest, put it that way. I mean, sadly, I'd love to have good critics. And if the hostages are freed because Trump getting all the Gulf countries united for his Hamas ultimatum, can you really still say he has no strategy? Yeah, I don't think he has a strategy. I think he muddles around. And in this case, I think that Jared Kushner and what's his name? The former Prime Minister of England came up with these ideas that are now being presented, and Trump ran with it. But look, you can free the hostages. You can free the hostages at any time if you'd given Hamas what they wanted. And the question is not freeing the hostages. The question is achieving the aims of the post-October 7th war. And I'm not Tony Blair, thank you. And I'm not sure that'll be achieved with this peace deal. But no, Trump has no strategy. And he hasn't had a strategy. You shouldn't have to need the Gulf state support for anything. Well, all you have to do is tell Israel to go in there and win the frigging thing. But yeah, he, to the extent that he believes that if he appeases the Gulf states and sucks up to them and does that, then he can call in favors. If you call that a strategy, then yeah, as a strategy, that's a strategy. I don't consider that a strategy. I consider it's like saying a mafia boss has a strategy. There's no strategy there. He believes in trading favors, and I'll do one for you and you do one for me, and he behaves like a mafia boss. And in this case, he's calling in some favors. At whose expense? At our expense, long term. Akira says, is this dim leftists a full-on nihilist mode and conservatives are quickly becoming national socialists? Anti-Semitism is rampant on both sides. Yeah, I mean, I think it is dim. I've been saying it's dim for a while now. I think Leonard's dim hypothesis is coming true, whether it's going to, I don't think we're on the verge of, but we might be. We might be. But generally, the movement that Leonard predicted in dim is happening in our world. There's no question about that, in my view. Alex, currently enrolled in the Work in Objectivism class through ARI, but forgot your discount code. More money for ARI, but want you to get the credit. Yeah, if they ask you in a survey how you found out about it, then tell them you heard it on the show, and I'll get the credit that way. Thank you, Alex. And I'm glad you enrolled. I hope you enjoy it. Andrew, the high holidays bring man very low, actually crawling on the floor for some Jews, yes, groveling for the litany of sins. Do you think that qua religion, the ultimate sin is being alive? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that's. I mean, for Christianity has, by the very fact that you're alive, you have sinned. I don't think the fact that you're alive is what makes you sin. It's the fact that you're human is what makes you sinful. But not for Jews. Judaism doesn't have original sin. It doesn't have that idea. It does have an idea that man is sinful, but a lot of that is modern. It comes in kind of the post-Christianity era. A lot of the prayer book in Judaism was written post-Christianity, and you can tell it's very influenced by Christianity. But Judaism doesn't have, I don't know, a baby. A baby is a sinful being. Judaism doesn't have that because because of man's fall. It recognizes, I guess, what it considers humans' frailty and the fact that human beings sin in their regular life. They lie, they do things like that. You on Yom Kippur, you recognize that fact and you ask for forgiveness. And God weighs your sins versus your, I guess, virtues and decides what your fate is going to be for the next year. Something like that. I can't remember. I used to go to synagogue and do all the, I sinned, all this BS, but haven't done that in many, many, many decades. James, Trump functions by whom he likes. I don't know of a single major figure in the Democratic Party with a subhuman epistemology to match Trump. I'd rather take on the left than Trump. Yeah, I mean, he has a, he's like a mafia boss. That's his function. The left is almost always wrong, but they don't have this particular mentality. I agree with you. I mean, they're bad in their own way, really bad in their own way. Bonnie, what is the logic book behind your left shoulder? My left shoulder. This is my left shoulder. I don't know. I've got two logic books. I think these are the ones you need. No, I don't think. One's an introduction to logic by H.W.B. Joseph. And this one is Logic, an Introduction by Lionel Ruby. And they're both books. They're both logic books recommended by Leonard Peikoff at some point. Andrew, if you've examined the validity of a thought behind a negative feeling thoroughly and concluded it is irrational, and you have the thought again, try ignoring the feeling and see if it just goes away. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think acknowledging that it's still there is worthwhile. Remembering that you did the work, and see if that helps over time. If not, you might have to do some more work. Clark, I don't think Trump's switches and leaps are deliberate or calculated. I think arbitrariness comes naturally to him. Yeah, absolutely. Non-savage algorithm. Trump has clearly succeeded in setting the precedent for dictatorship. Pleasing him has become the primary focus of leaders in business, education, and media. in every walk of life. Yeah, and the challenge will be, will that become also the focus of the generals? Will pleasing him be their focus? It could become very, very scary if that happens. James, the future of the UK looks bleak now. Scotland seems like it's no better off leaving. It is no better off leaving England. What do you think is next for the UK or Scotland? I don't know. I think if there was an election tomorrow, I think the Labour Party would lose, which is good, but it's probably Reform that would win. They would form a coalition with Conservatives. They would probably deport a lot of immigrants. They would get a few things right. They would get a lot of things wrong. I think England Britain is in for a long period of stagnation. I think Scotland will not leave Britain, will not leave Great Britain. It's got too much to lose by doing so. I think, like the rest of Europe, England will, somehow stagnate forward with fits and bouts and positives and negatives. The sooner an election happens, the better. So at least get rid of this government and see what's next. Michael, was Hitler's success in the beginning a result of the cowardice and evasion of the West, a lack of moral clarity to stand up for the good? Yeah. And also within Germany, the unwillingness of the better people in Germany to stand up against him, to challenge him, to recognize him as a real threat. They all thought he was a clown and wouldn't have any impact, that wouldn't do anything, and wouldn't be successful. They didn't take him seriously. And that was in Germany and outside of it. Michael, Silicon Valley captured both parties to leave them alone. That's why AI and tech is expanding and the stock market is doing so well. No, I don't know that that's true. There's antitrust cases going on against Silicon Valley as we speak. A number of companies in Silicon Valley. I don't think Silicon Valley's captured both parties to leave them alone. Although there's some of that. There's clearly, California regulates them less than they otherwise would because they've captured the Democratic Party in California, and the Trump administration is leaving them alone. But the stock market is going up for a variety of reasons that have to do, a lot of it has to do with the fact that earnings are really good. And the market is very optimistic about AI. I don't think they thought it through. They're optimistic about all the investment going into AI. They're optimistic about all the build out. This is a typical bubble, what you're seeing right now, an AI bubble, an AI infrastructure investment bubble, which is sucking capital out of every other investment into these massive data centers. I think there'll be a consequence of that. There will be a move down at some point here. How big, I don't know. When it'll happen, I don't know. But it will happen. But yeah, there are lots of reasons why the stock market, but the stock market doesn't represent the economy. And the stock market isn't just because they've captured the political party and being left alone. It's because these companies are dominant globally, not just in America. All these companies are being unbelievably successful on a global scale. And the market recognizes that. And they're all investing heavily in this exciting futuristic technology, which I don't think the market has really thought through about how that gets monetized. But it's too exciting right now to think things through. So everything's going up. It won't last. Andrew says, many in the manosphere have an affinity for Islam. Yeah, Andrew Tate converted to Islam. Islam treats women really, really badly. They like that. In Islam, you have more than one wife. They like that. Most of them can't even get one wife, never mind four, but they'd like to fantasize. And look, Tucker Carlson thinks Sharia law is not bad. It keeps people at bay. It keeps them peaceful. I don't know. I mean, yes, they like the authoritarianism that's embedded in Sharia law. Non-Chavez algorithm. Why is a life still so good despite the fact that literally everyone is a collectivist? Well, because you're not. Because your life doesn't depend on everybody else. It depends on you. And not everybody's a collectivist. There's still enough people who are good people who are not collectivist. Wyatt, asking the same question he's asked 55 other times. Didn't you say as recently as June that Islam wasn't the real threat to Europe and couldn't win long term? Yeah, I did say that, and I still say that. What's the point? Does that mean Islam won't kill a lot of Europeans between now and the next 20 years? No, I think it will, and I said that in June. Muslims will kill a lot of Europeans between now and the end of June. Muslims will disrupt a lot of lives. They will commit a lot of terrorist attacks. They will kill a lot of people between now and whatever. But they won't win in the long run. And they don't pose the real ultimate existential threat to Europe. That threat is posed by the reactionary forces that are going to mount against Islam. And those are going to be the Christian Crusaders, or whatever they call themselves. That's what I think. We'll see if that turns out to be true or not. But again, the fact that I said that they're not the real threat to Europe and couldn't win long term does not mean that they're not a threat to Europe, and it does not mean that they won't kill people in the meantime. Now, it'll be interesting to see if next month you can ask me the same question again, and then 6 months later again, and then a year later again. I'm spelling it out, I think, as clearly as I can. So either I'm failing or you are purposefully not listening, which I think is the answer. Linda, I look forward to the day that Trump is not part of the daily vocabulary. That will be amazing. Frank, Jihadi's father praised October 7th attack. Also, no aid is being found on Greta's Florida. And also, does martyrdom mesh with ideas of monument builders? Yes, that's right. I read somewhere jihadists, the guy who killed these Jews, did praise October 7th, so he's one of the bad guys. He's an Islamist. And if you praise October 7th, don't be surprised if your kids try to emulate it, which is what his son did. I don't understand the question about martyrdom. I don't understand the question about martyrdom and monument builders. Sorry. Andrew, it's abominable that there's going to be a mayor of New York City who would, if left to his own, allow the arrest of Netanyahu based on the ICC warrant. That's one among many, 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 many reasons it's going to be an abomination to have Mamdani as mayor. Yeah, I agree. Andrew, do you think the majority of military personnel strong-armed into going to Virginia to listen to the, whatever, the monologues by Hegseth and Trump, resented or were in line with it? I think most of them resented. I think. Who knows? But that's my thought. Michael, how do you keep your head above water in a world that is headed down a dark path? You focus on the things that you can control. You focus on your own life. You focus on your own values. You focus on the things that you love doing. Michael, money loves speed. Wealth loves time. Poverty loves indecision. I have no comment. I don't think that's right. Margaret, glad you're back, Yaron. Thank you, Margaret. Cook, I was the 69th like on today's show. Nice. Okay, cool. Michael, is it still likely America embraces objectivism before any other country? I don't know any other country. I mean, there's just I don't see any likelihood of another country doing it. So happy to find another country that is more likely. I just don't know where. I wish there were some candidates. All right. James, as a capitalist, do you think as a capitalist, what do you think about comedians going to Saudi Arabia? A lot of them criticize U.S. about everything and say nothing about Saudis. I think it's horrible that they're going to Saudi Arabia. I think it's a disgrace. They're obviously going to change what they're presenting. Saudi Arabia is a country where you go to, you can get sent to prison for life for what you say. There's no freedom of speech. There's no freedom of religion. There's atheists go to prison. It is absolutely horrible that they are going to Saudi Arabia. G. Gupta, you're on 1, COVID 0. What treatment helped? Glad you feel better. I mean, the thing that helps COVID is rest. That's it. I mean, unless you get it really bad and you have to go to the hospital, and then they can give you other stuff. And in some cases, you should take Paxlovid, it's called. But, let your doctor determine that. What helps? Sudafed for the congestion, Advil and Tylenol for the fever, and for the sore throat, and then lots of tea and lots of rest. Lots of rest. Paxlovid is worth taking if you're in a what do you call it, a risk group. I'm not in a risk group, so I didn't take Paxlovid. And take your vitamins. I think vitamin D is good for you to take, but you should be taking that anyway, not just when you get sick. You should just take a regular. You should. Most of us are what do you call it? Have lower vitamin D than we should. I don't know. What else? There is no. I mean, it's like the flu and the cold. I mean, what do you do when you have flu and a cold? You rest. I mean, zinc maybe. I don't know. Zinc is good for colds and flus. Supposedly, it cuts the time if you take it early. But the science is, is questionable, and it's hard to measure how much time, and and each one of us are a little different. So. But yeah, I think most of us have vitamin D deficiencies. I certainly did before I started taking vitamin D. So, Islam Ali, what makes evangelical Christians love Israel while Catholics are growing more and more distant from Israel? Also feel better. I think the evangelicals have this notion that the end of the world is coming. Israel is necessary as they read the prophecies. Israel has to exist for the end of the world to come. When the end of the world comes, the Jews either convert to Christianity or go to hell. So they believe the existence of Israel is part of prophecy and is part of the necessary conditions for Jesus to come back. That's why they love Israel. It's bizarre. But they're crazy. Equal to reality. Some get well money. Thank you. Equal to reality. Appreciate it. Frank says, please explain what's Kevlar. Can it stop bullets? Yes, it can. It depends on the bullets. I mean, the closer the range, the bigger the bullets, the higher the velocity, the less it can stop it. But overall, yes, it can certainly stop a bullet. It's a material that basically captures the bullet. It doesn't allow the bullet to penetrate through. So you get the impact, and you could be knocked out from the impact, but the bullet won't penetrate your skin. It's also good against knife attacks. It also stop a knife. Frank, thoughts on Jane Goodall, dead in 81. She had an amazing life. I mean, she did. She was this researcher in gorillas and stuff, and she had an amazing life on the one hand. On the other hand, very anti-human, very crazy environmentalist, very wanting. She wanted a population to shrink. She wanted human population to shrink. really philosophically really bad. Really bad. Really bad. Yeah, as Ian said, Kevlar is a fabric. It's a weave. It's a kind of a weave, but it's an incredibly strong fabric. And the way it's woven is what prevents the bullet from penetrating. It kind of captures the bullet. It's the best I have. All right, guys, I better go. Losing my voice. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. If I regain the voice by tomorrow. Appreciate the support. Thanks to all the super chatters. And I'm not sure what the topic will be tomorrow, but we'll figure it out. Have a great weekend. It's good to be back. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.